What is up, Philly sports fans? It's a little after 8:30. It's Wednesday night. It's time for EoP. I'm Big Al. And that's it tonight, guys. I'm running solo tonight. Joe and Fred have the night off. So this will be my first night actually hosting Edge of Philly Sports Live by myself. So bear with me. I'm going to try to comment along with you guys here. Talk about your 4 for 4. But mainly tonight, we're going to talk Phillies and Eagles. That's the big topic right now. Not too many Sixers discussions going on right now. One big piece of Sixers news: Montrezl Harrell tore his ACL, apparently working out. So he is out for the foreseeable future, of course. But yes, James Harden is still a Sixer. Nobody wants him, and I guess we're stuck with him. And we're just going to see how that runs out. But like I said, tonight we're going to talk Phillies and Eagles. Of course, the Phillies are on right now, up 5-2. It was 5-0 up until just a moment ago when Zach Wheeler gave up two home runs back to back, making it 5-2 Phillies. But looks like he's back to his form right now. So, like I said, I'm going to be alone tonight. I'm going to ramble with you guys. We're going to talk a little bit. I will follow along if you're watching the Phillies, which are right now, like I said, up 5-2 on the Marlins. Mute them. Join in with me. Comment along. Feel free to hang out with me. And I can't wait. We got a lot to discuss. So let's jump into your fighting Phils. And again, the emotional roller coaster ride known as the Philadelphia Phillies. I know Matty B, if he's listening, he always says, this is who this team is, and it really is who this team is. There's certain days you're so proud to be a Phillies fan. There's other days, unlike in the Pittsburgh series, where you want to put a brown paper bag over your head, watching just fundamentals go wrong, bats go cold, pitching not hold up, just different things like that. But then you get a series, an important series that this Marlins series is. I feel like I've said this a lot, but an important series because Miami, in this wild card race, and let's look at that wild card race. I mean, it's literally a 2-game swing between the 3 wild card spots and the 2 spots looking in. Right now, with this game still going on, it is the Giants in the top spot, Phillies in the second spot, Brewers in the third spot, and then Miami and Arizona are tied at a half a game out. And the Cubs are only 3 games out. So technically it's 5 games between 6 teams that can make a difference, and probably had a lot to do with the lack of big moves, maybe you say, during the trade deadline. Um, I tend to believe that because of this race being as tight as it is, giving teams like Chicago hope, because at one point not too long ago they were 6.5 games out, and it's not just us losing. I mean, if you look around, the Giants, they lose plenty. The Brewers and Cincinnati kind of go back and forth on that first place spot. It's like a kind of, that's a roller coaster ride in that NL Central. Arizona, same thing, kind of keeping it close with the Dodgers. But it's probably a reason that I would say no big splashes were made during the MLB deadline. But guys, I want to remind you that this show is brought to you by our great sponsors over at Sherry'sTickets.com. That's right, guys. Sherry'sTickets.com is where I go. The rest of Edge of Philly Sports and all our fans go to get their tickets because, listen, good seats are hard to come by. Phillies games are still almost sold out half the time. Eagles games, a lot of them are already sold out all the time. If you need a way to get to a game without, breaking the bank, Sherry'sTickets.com. You get premier seats at great prices, no hidden fees. You're not going to get bamboozled at checkout. We're going to have these $7,500 charges per ticket, and you get an extra additional 10% off using that great promo code EOP10. So check it out, EOP10 at Sherry'sTickets.com. So yes, back to the fighting Phils. I said Matty B roasts me on the fighting finals about this is the team who we're dealing with, and I mean, just stroll back a little bit. That Pittsburgh series felt, I was nauseated. I believe I did the Titans final that Sunday. Yeah, that Sunday for that Pirates game, and just the old cliche is we beat ourselves. They didn't beat us. Well, I mean, it kind of is true in this sense. But if you allow even not a great team in Major League Baseball to hang in there, they're going to win. They're going to come back. They're going to win things. And like I said, you come off a great series, taking 2 or 3 against one of the best teams in baseball in the Baltimore Orioles, the top team in the AL East, which is the top division by far in Major League Baseball. And then you go out to Pittsburgh against a team that traded a good portion of their team away, including one piece to us, which we'll jump into shortly. Um, and just completely asked the bed. Just that they weren't there. They had nothing to show for it. And that is the kind of stuff that's going to haunt us. And I've said before, like we're going to look back when when this season comes down to the last game or two of the season, and nobody knows what to do, and we're all chewing on our nails and holding our breath and hoping we can make it into the playoffs because this race is so tight. We're gonna look back at those games and we're gonna be like, man, if we just took one or two more of those games that we should have won against the Guardians, against the Pirates, it's gonna be could have been a world of a difference. But like I said, they did make some moves at the trade deadline. Michael Lorenzen, starting pitcher, a solid pitcher from the Tigers, was a good pickup. If you asked me before, I was hoping for maybe a right-handed bat. I feel our lineup was pretty good. I mean, one thing that's been solid has been our starting pitching. But Dombrowski and the powers that be went out and got Michael Lorenzen from the Tigers. He's like I said, a solid track record this season: 3.58 ERA, 5-7 record in 18 starts with a 1.098 WHIP. That's the second best WHIP of his career. The best one was about 2016 when he was with Cincinnati when he was a 1.080, and that was as a reliever. But he has a 6.5% walk rate and strikeouts nearly 8 hitters per 9 innings. So that's a good strikeout ratio for him. And looking at his splits, looking down at his stats, um, if you look at it month to month, in April, he kind of started off sluggish. First game, he was a 7.07 ERA in April, but it seems like he started to get things together and he dropped to a 1.95 in May, but then kind of had a not great June where he's a 5.30 ERA. But July, he put up a 1.14. So is this going to be the kind of guy he is? Back and forth, back and forth? Because if this is a trend, then August may not be great for him. But we'll find out. The Phillies have alluded to doing a six-man rotation. See how that works out. Maybe that means two of these guys at the end of the rotation will go into the reliever spot. Hence, this guy being a former reliever, they feel comfortable that they can move him and maybe Ranger or Taiwan or anybody, whoever's going to be that fifth and sixth guy. Christopher Sanchez, let's not forget about him, who has been very, very serviceable as a fifth starter. I mean, more than serviceable. You cannot ask any more from your fifth starter than you've gotten from Christopher Sanchez. So that's this is a good thing in the long run. Like I said, maybe Christopher Sanchez heads to the bullpen in the postseason, shores up that bullpen a little. I mean, Sir Anthony had a really good outing last night, I should say. And that was the first one in a while. So let's see if consistency happens. Speaking of last night, what we saw from they took the game one of this 4-game series against Miami. Right now, up 5-2 for those who are watching along. It's top of the seventh right now, just starting the seventh inning. Last night was a good night in many different ways. Hoping that Nick Castellanos is kind of finding his swing again after a dreadful June. I mean, I think his worst batting average by month was like 265. Other batting average, he was up to 300 or over. This month, the month of July, it was like under a 1.5. So definitely, strikeouts. You could see when he was up at the plate. The plate discipline wasn't there. He was swinging at anything. I mean, you just threw the ball towards him in any direction, he was swinging at it. It was painful to watch. But last night he had a great outfield assist between him and Bryson Stott to keep that game at 1-0. They sent the third base coach sent their catcher, and he wasn't. It was just a hair faster. It might have been a world of a difference for the Marlins. But still wouldn't matter. The Phillies end up taking that game 3-1 because they built off of that. Kyle Schwarber, who continues to walk. I mean, I think he in the last 6 games, he's got like 10 walks. It's like some ridiculous number. He gets on base. They put Jake Cave in to pitch run for him. Bryce Harper comes in, hits a double off the wall. De La Cruz just can't get into it. Ties the game up 1-0. Bryce sitting on second. Nick Castellanos comes up and he hits a straightaway center field home run. First home run he's had in a while. First time we see much power from him, such confidence from him. And is able to hit that 2-run bomb, making it 3-1, winning the game against former relief pitcher Robertson with us. So, guy I actually kind of talked about, I believe maybe on the last show, when I was talking about some retreads for the Phillies, guys who've been here before could come back. Carlos Santana from the Guardians was moved. Of course, he played for the Mets. Then he moved to Miami and kind of helped out the Phillies in a different way by not doing what he was supposed to do to close out the game and allowed the Phillies to take the lead, hold the lead, and win. Ultimately, take the first game of the series. Hopefully, this continues. They can take 2 games of this Marlins series, and that means by the end of tonight, they then will split between, you know, between both. It would split the series already, and hopefully go for a series win in one of the next 2 games. Um, and then, like I said, like looking back at the standings, the more you just winning alone moves you up in the standings, but you got Miami behind you half a game. You got to keep pushing them back, push other guys back too. The winning helps with that. So it's funny to be not funny, but like it's not unusual to pass the All Star break to look at the standings, especially the wild card standings. I mean, I think a little bit of last year kind of makes us do this more this early on. But this team, this league, especially the NL, it's a tight race, and it's something you're going to look at every day. You can check this every day. You could be the number one wild card spot and be 2 games out of the third wild card spot in one night. It's all it takes. It's all it takes. So every win's going to count more, but wins against your division and wins against guys in the wild card hunt like the Marlins, are going to be even bigger. So hopefully they can hold on to this. So, like I said, like Michael Lorenzen has come in, so hopefully he'll be a solid fifth or sixth guy, maybe 4, depending on how solid he is. But like I said, I kind of lean that he's going to be with the 6-man rotation, especially in the beginning. They're going to start to move guys, transition guys later this month, most likely, and maybe later into September to transition them into the bullpen. And then if you have a healthy Alvarado, and maybe this kind of leans towards that, maybe Alvarado, it kind of quiet on the Alvarado home front. I'm a little nervous from the lack of noise. I mean, you hear, oh, he's throwing a bullpen session. I believe he's throwing some down here. I don't hear too much about him being back just anytime soon. But he has thrown, but he hasn't thrown from the mound yet. So and the guy with his kind of velocity, this is really important. So, sorry, Anthony, like I said, hasn't been clutch. I mean, Craig Kimbrell has been the big difference here. Probably the most consistent guy as of recently, especially. Hoffman has been decent, but he's had his moments. Junior Marte, again, can be really good or can be really off. And this might be a way of shoring up the starting pitching, giving the bullpen a chance to get healthy and continue to do what they're doing. And then if you have to, you have 2 solid pitchers in, say, Christopher Sanchez and Michael Lorenzen to move into that bullpen later down the season or into the postseason and kind of shore up that bullpen a little better. Looks like Matt Strom has come in for Zach Wheeler for the bottom of the 7th. So Zach Wheeler's night is done. Guys, remember to stick with me, even not stick with me, but stick with EoP after our boy Pat Bernard, the Gobbler from PM and the AM, as well as the Steel Steps program on Friday nights, will be bringing you the Fighting's final after I'm off air. So you guys check that out. So, like I said, Phillies are up 5-2 right now. We got to see. I really hope they can hold on to this win. That'll be 5 games in a row, and these winning streaks are important because I feel like this team goes on 4 or 5 game winning streaks and go 4, 5, 6 game losing streak. It's like they suck you in, and then you walk away, and they suck you back in. And I mean, baseball is a marathon, 162 games. It's the way it's going to be. But it's just, and it's not just this year either. Last year, all the way back to like 2008. I mean, they had the same record, I think, in 2008 this time of year. So it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be. And you know what? Call me a little crazy. Call me a little crazy, but when it is easy, I feel like those teams, don't always do well. I mean, we saw that for sure. Let's go. Sinatra saying, "Let's go Eagles." We're going to talk about that. That shirt is dope. Yes, thank you. This is an old shirt too. You can tell how like stretching a little bit, a little faded in the black. This is for any Italian guys. It's funny because like I was around St. It was right in the beginning of the season one year years ago. I think like could have been like 2012 when I bought this shirt. They had a whole wall of green and Irish Philly stuff, and I said, you know, when I was an Italian, I said, there's no Italian stuff here, and they had like one hat, one flat brim hat with a stitch on Phillies with the same kind of color creasing here for the Italian flag colors. And then they had two T-shirts. The other one I didn't like, and of course I bought this one to go with the hat. So thank you, Snipe Sinatra. So let's talk about the Eagles for a little bit. Let's change gears, and as we do, I want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by PhillySportsTrips.com. The next big trip is in San Diego on September 2nd. So it's 1 month away, literally a month away, guys. So get out, get to PhillySportsTrips.com, sign up before it sells out. And if you're like, you know, it's a little too close, a little too far, I don't have the time. Don't worry. All the away games for the Eagles are locked and loaded at PhillySportsTrips.com. Different price levels, all that stuff for you. First one, of course, is to New England for the first week on September 9th to the 11th. If you ever been to Foxborough, it's actually a pretty cool trip. And if you ever go to Philly Sport Trips, it's not just a ticket and the transportation in the hotel. It's an experience. It's a party. Hollis Thomas is going to be there. Local Boston, Philly, or Philadelphia Eagles fans are going to be there. So check it out, PhillySportsTrips.com. And tell them EoP and Big Al sent you. So check it out. So let's talk about the Eagles. There's not a ton of conversation on the Eagles today. It's still, of course, camp where we are, I believe, we're a week away. We're a week away or a week and a day. I think it's a Thursday for the first preseason game for the Eagles. But a couple guys, from an injury standpoint, you're keeping an eye on is Hassan Reddick. They're doing some mild stuff. He's had the groin tenderness since the start of camp. And Avante Maddox with the toe again. So that's a thing to keep out because that keeps nagging. I know it's a toe, but a toe can be very devastating in the injury category because, I mean, I don't care what position you're pushing off, you're running, a toe hurts, it hurts. I mean, anybody's had a simple ingrown toenail in their life knows it can be painful. So we got something to keep their eye on. Uh, you know, you got Nick Sirianni talking about Jalen Hurts, saying how Jalen is like another coach in the locker room. He knows the offense so well, and it's this goes to show, year two. I mean, even though it's a different offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson's been around for a while. He's worked with him. He's worked last year. So even though it's a different offensive coordinator, a guy who has worked with him. So I feel a little bit more confident in that. I'm a big fan of Sean Desai and how Desai's, who he's worked with in the past and his game planning. So it'd be interesting to see how all that works out. We'll talk about that, kind of break down that as we go along here. Um, and here's the thing is, as a guy in the media, sports media, sometimes things get a little blown out of proportion. The thing is, Hassan Reddick was asked a question about his contract because he played so well last year. I mean, we all can agree, if any Eagles fan can agree, and even if you're not an Eagles fan, you can agree that Hassan Reddick has definitely played above and beyond the contract. With that being said, and somebody asked him, do you think that? And he kind of answered in a cryptic way, you know, it's not for me to discuss right now. Like he didn't say, "Oh no, I deserve my money and I move on." I mean, I don't think any player would say that. And of course, it's turned into, "Oh, Hassan Reddick wants a new contract." I mean, we've been watching it around. You see Dallas out there with their linemen trying to get a new contract. We saw the Giants dealing with it with Saquon Barkley, with him getting getting an extension. I just think they're trying to play that a little bit. I think it'd be a lot to ask to have every year. Like, I mean, it's a slippery slope. If Joe and Fred are here, I wonder how they would talk about it. I'm sure we'll hear from them next week about it. But like, it's a slippery slope with these contracts. I mean, every year if you play, like, here's my thing is if you play better, um, you want more money. Understandable. I'm actually saying that's understandable. But if you don't play as well and you don't live up to your contract, are you going to take less money? Because that's kind of where it becomes. Like, are you gonna have to worry about contracts every year, guys sitting out every year? I really like it's kind of becoming an unnecessary soap opera across the league, not just in Philly, but across the league. Like, and I understand, like in basketball and baseball, these are pretty much guaranteed for the most part contracts. So I mean, not guaranteed contracts. I mean, baseball and basketball, you're pretty much guaranteed. Football, it does give the upper hand to the organization more than the player most of the time. Pending unless superstar contracts and non-trade, no trade clauses and things along those lines. But I mean, I just really do feel contract discussions in general. I'm not talking about Son Reddick, but I'm talking about in general. It's like, all right, I agree you can outplay your contract, and maybe any of us have you're at your job and you're getting paid X amount of dollars an hour, and you feel like and you think you're producing more than you're getting paid. We've all gone to a boss at one time and asked for a raise, right? And I don't think you're not going every day, you're not going every week, you're not going every month, you're not going every year. But if they're not doing it, you're going to ask for a raise because you believe you deserve that. So not against that to a point, and maybe working in its incentives into contracts or giving them signing bonuses where it doesn't affect the cap, which can affect bringing in good top tier players. But I mean, it's kind of got to go both ways because it's the same thing as if Hassan Reddick had a good year, mediocre year, maybe a little less than mediocre. Is he going to is a guy like him going to go ask for more money or for less money? Like, hey, you know what? I didn't do so good. Here's $1 million back of my contract. I didn't really live up to the 20. I only feel like I did about 19, 18. So here's $1 million back. Thank you. No, we all know that's not going to happen. They want to guarantee. So if they're not doing well, that's why they want guaranteed money. One of the reasons, because if they don't do well, or they're going to trade them or something, or they're going to let them go because of performance, they're stuck. So I mean, in general, slippery slope with contract discussions. Again, I feel the whole Hassan Reddick thing was kind of blown out of proportion and just kind of became into the conversation of the Philadelphia sports talk over the last day or two since that interview. But we keep looking at guys who who how are they gonna succeed this year? Who's gonna move on? Who's gonna move up? Second year guys, especially a lot of these Alabama, Georgia guys that have come in their second year. And one of the big names is N'Kobe Dean. Um, some people just think he's a bum. Some people think he's going to be great. But we all can agree nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. The sample size we got from him. I talked about it last week with the guys. The sample size we got from him was a Tennessee game where he played like a quarter of the game at least. Where he was, but he had some decent stats. He was in almost every tackle. He had one tackle for loss. Very TJ Edwards esque, who's a guy we lost. So maybe he will fill in that gap at TJ Edwards. I mean, he's a third round pick who was supposed to be much higher pick, but he's still a third round pick. And we all know how the Eagles deal with linebacker situations. So I wonder if and they gave him the green dot. So to me, they have to see something. You don't just ride with somebody and give him a green dot because green dot all but says you're the leader on the team. I mean, can you be a leader without the green dot? Absolutely. But you have to know not just what you're doing, but you have to know what the other guys need to do, like where they need to be lined up or something. So to me, that's an important tell, maybe, that the Eagles are feeling very comfortable for a guy who only really did special teams last year and only got in on games either they're blowing people out or very last minute plays, But it's I personally, and it's just my feelings, not basing this any more facts than anybody else has. There is something from what you've heard from his former coaches in Georgia, from the players who played with him. You know, uh, they look to him like a big brother. So maybe that alone with his tenacity could be enough to be a very solid linebacker with the pedigree to be a good leader on the field. I don't understand why people are totally out on N'Kobe Dean. Again, the same reason I'm not totally in on N'Kobe Dean is the same is we don't know. We just don't know what's going on with him until we see what's happening. Not too much coming out of the linebacker discussion out of practice because it's limited. You're not seeing too much, and how much can how much can a linebacker do um, in practice this early on in the preseason. So I guess we'll find out more when they do dual practices with other teams, and B have a preseason game under their belt because he'll be getting a ton of time if not playing almost the entire games. Um, like I said, Jalen Hurts is there's Nick Sirianni still gushing over him. Even if the Jalen Hurts takes like a small step backwards, I see still one of the top tier uh, uh, quarterbacks in the NFL, and I can say easily top five, and even possibly top three if he's still at the top of his game, and if he takes a step forward, I mean, sky's the limit for this man. I mean, I know there could be some Dallas fans listening or something, people, but you tell me in the NFC a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts right now. I mean, unless he takes steps backwards or due to injury he doesn't play. Knock on wood that doesn't happen. But I just don't know in the NFC a quarterback that's going to really rival Jalen Hurts. I mean, Derek Carr went to the Saints. He's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's going to rival Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts is having his feet and puts that a whole other weapon for him. Dak Prescott could come close to it. I mean, this could shape up to be something we thought may have happened last year. This year, if Dallas Cowboys are a good team this year, this could shape up to be some sort of Eagles Dallas playoff, maybe NFC Championship type caliber season. And somebody asked me about that. Like I remember talking a little bit about this to somebody last year when the Cowboys were playing the Niners, and if they whoever won was coming to Philly to play the Eagles. And we were all talking about, of course, it was ultimately the Niners who turned into to be the biggest whiny baby organization, media, as well as fan base. So if you're listening, sorry, it's true, guys. Not all of you. I'm not always don't lump everybody in the same category, but it's a whole different conversation. But yeah, you guys, box of tissues. And this is kind of coming from an Eagles fan who deals with Cowboys fans. So put it at that. Let's see. Joseph's chiming in. Joseph Theus. Dallas is going to self-destruct. Well, that would be the Dallas thing to do. Let's be honest. They tend to self-destruct. Like, to be honest with you, I really thought they should have beat the Niners. Niners, they both had good defenses. Maybe if you want to give the Niners a lean in the defensive category, but in the offensive category, I believe Dallas had the upper hand. So, the better team on paper did not win that game. And welcome to the football. And that's a self-destruct thing. But um, I mean, Joe, I can see where you feel like that. I mean, sometimes history would show us that. Uh, but I mean, well, at one point you're going to buck history. Like at one point you're going to go against the grain. Let's talk about history. I mean, one of the big things we keep hearing about is the Super Bowl hangover. Are the Eagles going to be able to move forward and return to the Super Bowl the year after losing in the Super Bowl because there's the Super Bowl hangover? And we'll get into that in a moment because that's one of my conversation pieces for tonight. But yeah, I mean, could Dallas self-destruct? But I mean, look around the league. Like, look around the NFC. Let's talk about that. I'm going to pull this up for a second. NFC teams right now. Um, you know, I expect, you know, I don't expect anything Arizona. I know people are super high on Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to move forward, but even Atlanta taking a step forward, what are they? 7-10, 8-9. I don't know. I don't. I really just their quarterback's a giant question mark. We don't know what we're going to get with him. Yeah, they picked up the best running back. This generational running back, but we all know how that plays. I asked the Giants how picking up Saquon Barkley was helpful. I mean, it doesn't win you championships, and we've discussed this at length during the draft. Carolina Panthers, I think they take a step forward, but a lot of new pieces, so I'm not expecting too much out of them. Everybody's high on the Chicago Bears. Yeah, absolutely. They have a young quarterback, not unlike Jalen Hurts with speed and good arm, but they still have to, they still have a lot of building against them. So Chicago could be top in their division between them and the Lions, but I don't know about like being that huge of an argument, again versus the Eagles. Um, Joe's saying I see Atlanta winning 9 games. I mean, it's very plausible, Joe. I mean, we all can see anything right about now. I just don't get this overhype of Atlanta that people. I have people going, "Oh, Atlanta's going to go to playoffs." Could they? Sure, absolutely. They're in a weaker division. They could definitely get into the playoffs. I'm just not sold on them yet. They made strides. They made moves. They garnered pieces. They updated their O line, which was a big problem in some ways. So I don't. I'm not like okay. Oh, Atlanta's going to be great. I think it could be an interesting story. They could kind of do what the Detroit Lions were in the NFL last year. This team has usually kind of been playing in the basement for a while, kind of peeking their head up, being disruptors in games against better, which you would quote unquote better teams. But I just don't know so much about like, oh yeah, 9 wins. 9 win gets them probably in that most people in that division a playoff berth. Then of course going in alphabetical order, Dallas Cowboys. I already talked about them for a minute. We'll come back. Green Bay Packers. No, they're not going to be. Rams. You have a good quarterback in Matt Stafford, but I don't know that I just this team seems kind of haphazard. I just I'm not seeing anything from there that's giving me any thrill about the Rams. Minnesota Vikings. Don't even get me started on the Vikings. Don't get me started on Kirk Cousins. Talk about a team that self destructs. At least, at least, Joe, that the Dallas Cowboys, they can kind of win big games at moments. They just kind of fall at the top games, like the playoff games or getting into the playoffs. I mean, you put Kirk Cousins on a primetime game. I mean, of course, his first game back here in South Philly is a primetime game on a Thursday night. I mean, let's just see how that plays out. Um, so again, not too worried about them. The Saints, yeah, they upgraded Dark Car. I think they have a good defense. They could be a decent team. Time will tell on them. New York Giants. New York Giants kind of an enigma to me because, I mean, I could sit here and kind of talk myself both ways on the New York Giants. Divisional team always kind of give you a chance. We saw how the Washington Commanders weren't a great team last year in the beginning. Well, they weren't a bad team. I'm sorry. They were a decent team, but they really were not supposed to come and upset um, the Eagles in Philadelphia. But they did, and every dog has his day. But the Giants, I like Brian Dable. I think Brian Dable is a very good coach. I think the reason they made the playoffs last year is because of Brian Dable and his coaching and knowing how to squeeze the most out of those lemons that he had to deal with. I just think with Daniel Jones, who's making more money or more of a cap hit, I should say, than Jalen Hurts, at your helm is not going to help you. It's not going to help you. Saquon Barkley's got to stay healthy, number one. And number two, again, is not going to be enough to carry this team. They're just going to beat him down if they end up making him his big offensive weapon. So it's just hard for me to see the Giants taking any large steps forward unless Daniel Jones has some, coming to Jesus moment where he's able to really burst onto the scene. I just don't see it, and that's what proved me wrong. That's the kind of things that we have to keep our eye on. Keep going down the line here. San Francisco again. Oh, well, the Giants are going to be another, or the Niners are going to be another good team. Blah blah blah. Why? Why? Why are the Niners going to be a good team? They lost their defensive coordinator, who was a big reason their defense was so good, in D'Amico Ryans. They lost some other key players. Yeah, they gained in some ways, but who's their quarterback? I mean, Brock Purdy stays 100% healthy. I mean, I don't know. Like none of their quarterbacks either can't stay healthy, or and I only think Brock Purdy was a great. He came in the right time. He played against some lesser teams, where defense was able to carry him, and he had some really good success. I think Brock Purdy could be a good quarterback. I don't know if he's a everyday starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. Nothing has proved me to see that. And when your quarterback's a question mark, your whole team's a question mark. So I just don't see the Niners being this big monster. I think they take a step backwards. Um, I think they take a big step backwards. Hey, Joe, yeah, I agree 100% on the Daniel Jones thing. I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't understand the Giants where they backed into a corner. Like, were they afraid like somebody was going to leave? Like, you had a good team. You showed Brian Dable could coach. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see how Daniel Jones was the answer for them and the money that they spent. I mean, I just laughed at that aspect of it. Seattle, I think Seattle could be another good team, formidable team. Um, you know, they definitely made some upgrades, so they could be a formidable team. I'm still not, putting them above the Eagles right now on paper. I don't. Tampa Bay is just going to be hogwash, just garbage. The Commanders, I honestly think the Commanders they're trying to lose on purpose at this point. I honestly don't think. I mean, Sam Howell could be a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he can't be. I just don't know, and that's the only thing they got going for him right now. Like, what else they have? They have a couple wide receiver options. But other than that, I mean, nothing's really going to nothing's standing out at me saying, "Oh yeah, well the Commanders are going to take a giant step forward." I'd be shocked. That'd be the shock of the day to me. Let's see, Joe saying, I think Seattle will be okay, but no way better than us. No. And that's my thing. Is like on paper, and this is strictly on paper. This is not me being a homer. This is me being analytical and kind of just running through the NFC teams right now. You have teams that are taking steps forward. Let's talk about. Let's just look at them. Teams taking steps forward. Atlanta Falcons, but they were a 5-6 win game team last year. I mean, the step forward still barely gets you into the playoffs. Carolina, barely a step forward. Chicago, step forward, I believe. Dallas, I think they're going to be on the same level. They can just play better. Detroit, step forward. Green Bay, no way. Rams, no way. Vikings, I think they go backwards, if not forwards. And then people go, "Oh, you don't like Kirk Cousins or the Vikings?" I don't like Kirk Cousins more than anything. But you have Kirk Cousins at the helm. You have one of the best wide receivers in the game. But you've got Kirk Cousins running. What does that mean? You lost Alvin Cook. You really don't have many more offensive weapons. And their defense made some improvements, but nothing to write home about. The Saints, yes, you got Derek Carr, but let's see what Derek Carr can do in New Orleans. That'll be interesting to find out. But I would say fine with Derek Carr, that team takes a step forward. The Giants go backwards, stay the same forward. That's the big question mark. Let me see here. What's next? Oh, the Niners. I think they're backwards, not forward. Seattle, maybe slight step forward. Tampa Bay backwards, Commanders backwards, and that's your NFC. I mean, like, I don't, I just don't, I don't understand. Like, people are all high on them, and I know people are looking at this. Let's bring this up real quick. This is the calendar or the schedule right now. Um, and we're going to talk about the Super Bowl hangover, and I'm going to tell you my feelings why I don't know it's going to be as much as a hangover as it normally is. I think the only hangover from the Super Bowl we have to worry about is um, just they played later. They played later in the season. So both teams had to go later into the season. So there could be a little lag because of that, because other teams had an additional 6 weeks of rest at least. And the Patriots are one of those teams. That's the first team where we go against. Before we get into the talk about this, I want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by David R. Cherry at the cherryinjurylaw.com, 610-565-0300. You get hurt at work. You get hurt in a car accident, personal injury, criminal law. These are life-changing events, guys. Life-changing events. And David R. Cherry is the man who will fight for your rights. You call him at 610-565-0300 or cherryinjurylaw.com. Call Dave. Tell him Edge of Philly Sports sent you. And he will take care of you in really those important times of need in your life, because life altering those times can be. Um, so let's see. Just with Hertz, I don't see having a hangover. Okay, so you stole that one from me. I'll let you have that. Let's move on. Let's talk about Super Bowl hangover. I agree. I think Hertz is one of those reasons that the Super Bowl hangover isn't as much as a problem as everybody thinks it's going to be. I think Hertz is a special type of player, because no matter how you felt about Jalen Hurts, and I was one of those people who were upset about losing Carson Wentz, and not saying I didn't believe in Jalen Hurts, just didn't understand the drafting of him at the time. And I still don't think the Eagles organization knew what they were doing when they drafted him at the time either. Um, I don't think they knew what they had. They had a top flight backup, but maybe did they have a top flight quarterback and what we have seen from him? But I've seen what I've needed to see from him, and I think he's got the talent. Now we know, even going into that, he had the grit, he had the ability to be something special. And going along with what Joe's saying here, I think Hurts is one of the reasons the Super Bowl hangover isn't as much as a big problem as you know people are going to make it out to be. I was one of those. I didn't understand the draft him at that time either. Yeah, well, and again, I'm not defending my stance. I know Carson Wentz ended up being a head case, and it was the best thing the Eagles was able to do. It was a turn. It was actually the turnaround for Howie Roseman. I think when Howie Roseman better made him better um, as a GM, and it was also a turnaround for this team and to be able to move forward. You lost the Super Bowl head coach and Doug Peterson, but I said this like I at the time when he was drafted, we just signed Carson Wentz to a big contract. We thought he was our franchise quarterback, and then you go kind of show a hand a little bit of bringing in, Carson or bringing in Jalen, and you're like, okay, what's going on? That's why I wasn't so high on him at the time. Nothing against him personally, but with that being the past, I was moving forward. But I believe he's a big reason where the Super Bowl hangover isn't a issue or lessens the Super Bowl hangover. I think he's one, if not the number one reason of that. I think the strength of the NFC is another reason where I feel more comfortable on paper. Again, this is with good health, barring any serious injuries. I believe the Eagles have upgraded across the board in offense and defense. Another really good Howie Roseman, another guy who I used to S on a lot. And again, rightfully so at the time he was doing bad, but he was able to turn his thought process around, look at top tier schools like Georgia and Alabama and bring guys in there. But I think this NFC is another reason where we can get back to the playoffs and maybe even clinch a first round bye, possibly. Um, and let's see. I had nothing against him. I just didn't understand why. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. I don't think anybody hated Jalen. I think people like to take stances and will die on certain hills to just to be right. I think some people would rather be right than win a Super Bowl. I'm okay being wrong about the Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts situation. I said going into last year, like he had a decent rookie year. He was able to get into the playoffs. But we saw a lot of it was based on the running game and him more game managing than being a prolific passer or anything like that. But he shut us all up pretty quickly early on to the season and rode that bull right down the line. And it was something to behold. I mean, it was something really to just sit back and and then when they locked him up to the contract, wow, we got a top tier quarterback maybe for the foreseeable future. And we haven't really been able to say that since maybe the Donovan McNabb era. And that's been a long time. Um, but like I said, let's and I think another look into it is this schedule. Um, some people look at this middle of the schedule, this Dallas from Dallas to Dallas from November 5th to December 10th, so about a month and five and some change. A bit of a murderer's row of lineups of games, and rightfully so. I mean, to look at that, but I mean, let's look at it for a minute. I mean, luckily, coming off the first couple games, or say 3 games technically, having a Super Bowl hangover, we all can admit that the first couple 2, 3 games, 4 games of this any season for any NFL team isn't like an extended preseason because they're not getting as much work, especially the starters. We might see Jalen Hurts and the starters play maybe a series at best in the first game, but that's it. That's about it. They're not going to put him out there. They didn't do it last year, and we saw how. Oh, geez, sorry. We'll talk about this in a second, guys. Who were watching the Phillies game? They just walked in the a run with the bases loaded, just like they kind of did with the Marlins did with us earlier in the game. It is 5-3, bottom of the 8th, bases loaded with Hoffman pitching and only 1 out. So we need a double play ball to get out of this inning and try to maybe get a little more insurance runs in the top of the 9th. But that's where we're at with the Phillies 5-3. I'll keep you posted if there's any changes as well. But I mean, being kind of quote unquote blessed with the beginning of the season being New England, Minnesota, and Tampa Bay. And I'm not putting any 3 of these teams down, but based on what we know about them, New England, it's a little bit tougher place to travel to, so that's maybe a little harder of the 3 in my eyes of these 3 games. But it's not a bad team to begin with. That's another thing. And have maybe where you don't have your best game, but you can still pull out a win. Minnesota, I've said it already. Minnesota, Thursday night, primetime game, South Philly, Thursday night football. I mean, you might as well just get a pair of Depends for Kirk Cousins because he's gonna do something in the bed. Um, the Tampa game. Tampa is in September 25th. Another team that's not gonna be that great. Washington's not here. So the first 4 weeks is going to be is a little bit of a blessing. Again, where the Super Bowl hangover allows them to get adjusted, and I think that plays well for us. And then, of course, that murderer's row in the middle does play a little bit. Playing Dallas twice in a month span is tough, but um, it's doable. They have a bye week after the first game. Going back to KC, up scored 5-4. They just scored, so now we're up 1 run. So hopefully they can get out of this without tying the game up. Um, KC, that's going to be a tough one. Buffalo, let's see how Buffalo is. I mean that by then you know who your team is. I mean, hopefully Buffalo. Let's see if they could still be another perennial good team. But we see them kind of fall under big games. And it's middle of the season now. And you know what you're dealing with. Like it's like how many times you see guys start off of the season really good or really bad and kind of falter by the middle of the season. Well, we can find out. We'll know what we have more as we get closer. Again, I already talked about San Fran does not scare me, and then of course Dallas. So, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're 17-0, but you know, it's to me, it's a good start for coming off the Super Bowl, especially with the quote unquote Super Bowl hangover. Joe is saying, I'll be at the Tampa game. A lot of EOP guys will be there. I would love to be down there. I'm actually trying to. But, Joe, I don't know if you're going down there with Philly Sports Trips, but even if you're not going down with them, you already have your tickets and everything lined up. Go to Philly Sports Trips and get to the tailgate. You don't have to worry about bringing food or doing anything. You just pay, you get in, booze, food, drink, all that stuff, all taken care of. And the food's top notch. I'm not just talking about burgers and dogs, top notch fillets, seafood, you name it. It's a spread. It is a hell of a spread. A bunch of Eagles fans, you'd have a good time. So check it out. Um, I'm also going to the Dallas game in Philadelphia and the Miami game. Yeah, I'll probably be at those games too, myself, Joe. So hopefully we'll get to see each other. Oh, you're coming up from Florida. Okay, cool, man. That's awesome. Daniel Berry Sports, what's going on? Hand pink waving. Pink hand waving. Oh, I'm waving back at you. Hello. So two things. Let's recap real quick. Number one, the Phillies got out of the inning. It's 5-4. Phillies are going into the ninth inning now. Hopefully they can get a little insurance run, but we'll keep you posted. Like I said, when I'm done, stay tuned. Our boy the Gobbler will be on to have the Fightings final not too long after I'm off the air and the Phillies game is over. So stay tuned. And if you're like, oh, how do I go follow us on guys, smash that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, also TikTok and Instagram are on there as well. There's a lot of plenty of shorts on there to check out for quick hits. And just go to EOP. It's either go to Edge of Philly Sports, you see at the bottom of the screen here, edgeofphilly.com or EOPsports.com. All the live shows are on there, the main page, as well as each show has its own page on there. Check out all the great writers and the great shows you have missed. And speaking of great shows that you missed, here is the lineup this week for Edge of Philly Sports. If you missed Birds Around Table, Chalk Talk, Attacking the Third, the podcasts are out, so go check them out or check them out on our YouTube or webpage. Tonight, Party on Broad started off with a Mount Rushmore of current Philly sports players. Very interesting topic. Go to our Twitter. You can see them trying to see who you pick as had the best Mount Rushmore. Philly Press Box Radio. Speaking of Phillies, they had the Fanatics' best friend on today, so that was pretty cool. And then tonight, of course, myself flying solo tonight here on EOP Live, and then later the Fightings final tomorrow. Matty B will be back with Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. So plenty of going on here and more over the weekend. Um, so like I said, recap real quick. I believe the beginning of the schedule plays in the favor of the Eagles with the whole hangover situation. I believe Jalen Hurts is the main reason, and the leadership on that team. You got guys who've been through. This is my third one. You got guys who've been here already now. 2017, you have Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. You had Jake Elliott, the kicker. Guys who have been here for a long time who played on the Eagles with that 2017. So I think those guys will help people get ready who, maybe the young guys, and the other guys, some of the young guys, they came off national champions with the Georgia Bulldogs. So guys who know how to play in a big game and come back the next year and get ready to play again. So I think between that and the leadership this team has, and the coaching staff, that will help this team get ready. We've already seen Nick Sirianni barking at people about jumping off sides already day one of practice. So that is going to be a key factor for I think diminishing or lessening the Super Bowl hangover. The beginning of the schedule helps out. Jalen Hurts, the other veterans who have been here in 2017, big reason why. I know the numbers tell you otherwise. And listen, I believe there's going to be a little bit of something. Again, I'm not saying this team's going to go undefeated and they're just going to run ramp shot over the entire NFL, but I think the stars align between the strength. The next piece I'm going to talk about is the strength, and we already talked about it a little earlier, the strength of the NFC and the NFL. I mean, on paper right now, you have to put the Eagles in the top 5 teams overall. So, again, gives you another chance on paper before anything really happens to feel comfortable with the Eagles having a really strong outing. Um, let's see. Joseph's asking, what do you think Nolan Smith? What do you think of Nolan Smith? He was my pick from the beginning. I would have taken him at 10. I believe he was probably on the board for them at 10 if Carter wasn't there. If he didn't fall back to them. I think Nolan Smith's great. I really like Nolan Smith. All arrows are pointing out he's got good character. He's a smart football player. He's aggressive. He's smart. He can maybe use the term of controlled aggression is a good one for I've heard a lot of people talk about guys I know who cover the team. He's had a lot of time to play because of Hassan Reddick having the groin injury, the tenderness in the groin. Um, and if he can live up to what we expect him to do, and I mean, start as early as this year, maybe even the next year, and you have a healthy Hassan Reddick next year, and you got those two as bookends on your D line. Whoo, that's scary. That's scary. And with some of the big boys we got in the middle, yeah, very high. If I guess the short answer to that would be very high on Nolan Smith. Very high on Nolan Smith. I'm high on a lot of the defensive players, to be honest with you. I mean, some guys, either way. I mean, I think like the Eagles have appropriately prepared for guys getting older. And the key one I'm thinking of is Darius Slay or whatever you want to call him. Because he's getting older. And I wrote an article earlier last month about Richard Sherman, and Richard Sherman came out in an interview. I believe it was Chris Long's podcast about how when he played against Devonta Smith, when he played for Tampa that year, he kind of noticed these guys are too fast for me. And it's late, it's later in the season. Just can't. He was probably in the middle of the season at that game, and he that was kind of his wake up call. Like, all right, this is my last year. These guys are too fast for me. So I mean, Darius Slay's 32 years old. You got Bradbury at 30, which is good prime years. And you kind of added other guys into that and the safety position. You kind of added other guys in to bolster that, to add depth. I mean, go back to 2017. Look at guys that really were big pieces of that because they were 1-year contracts. They were older. They were able to give other guys breath, take some time out to keep fresh legs on the field. I mean, Brandon Graham had best year yet as an Eagle. Why? And he played less snaps. Why? Because he had breaks. He had time to keep his legs loose. He didn't work himself to the bone, and then by the time he got to week 15, 16, and 17, he was mush. So I mean, a lot has to go into that. Yeah, Joe. Thank you. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you're talking about the Nolan Smith thing. Yeah. Again, all on paper. We don't know yet. We have to see some preseason games, and of course, get them into NFL speed action to really get a feel for what's going on. Guys, if I've told you before, like if you're going to go to the game, sherrystickets.com, use that promo code EOP10. Save yourself money. Save yourself money. It's very easy. I also told you about Philly sports trips for all the trips to go down there. My boy Joe says he lives in Florida. Even though you live in Florida, go to phillysportstrip.com. Sign up for the tailgate. I will trust me, bro. You will not be sorry. And then if you're coming up here, they do local tailgates as well. But if you're going to be staying local, right off 95, coming from Philly, coming from Delaware, right here in the Delco area, Dolan's Bar, 24 East Sellers Avenue. PJ's the man, great owner. I talk to him all the time. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. One of the tannest guys you'll ever meet too. No, just pictures makes him look that way. But Quizzo music, great times. And listen, you never know what former players are going to be there. I walk in there and there's Hollis Thomas at the end of the bar. Not there to make a signing or anything. He's just there hanging out. You never know who's going to be at Dolan's. So I would advise you guys to get down there, 24 East Sellers Avenue in Ridley Park in the Delco area, right off 95, south of the airport of Philadelphia, and right north of Wilmington, Delaware. So you can get it from anywhere. Don't have to be from Delco to partake in a little Dolan's action. So back to the conversation. Yeah, Nolan Smith, very high on him. But like I said, a lot of people are like, this offense is going to be so good, the defense isn't going to have to be that good. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's the game plan. I don't think that's it. I think Sean Desai has some of the things that made Gannon good, but I think he's going to see a guy who's going to be able to blitz more and at least disguise blitzes or make you feel that this is an option. I mean, as an offensive coordinator, I mean, you're probably sitting there going, I'm not looking for any blitzes, when you're going against Jonathan Gannon's defense. Now, luckily, I mean, we all kind of bag on Jonathan Gannon, but you still got to give the guy a little credit. I mean, one of the best defensive years that this team has had, almost broke the sack record without having to send a lot of blitz packages in. But I think you're going to see a little bit more aggression, again, that controlled aggression from the defense on different aspects. And Sean Desai, like in the different interviews I've seen from him, he has a good mentality. He has a good mentality for the city. He seems like he's ready to move forward with it. So I'm excited to see. He's a guy who worked under a guy I really liked. I was hoping that maybe the Eagles were going to get as a defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. He also worked out at Seattle under Pete Carroll. So I mean, two guys are really if you could take pieces of them and put them into this defense, Sky could be the limit. I know everybody's kind of looking past this defense, but I'm actually looking really forward to see what it can do. Guys, the Phillies are getting into the end of it here, and as I am too, I'm coming to the end of the show here. Like I said, not too much on the Flyers home front right now. Pretty much, crickets on that end of things. The Sixers, everything's kind of been status quo. James Harden's still a Sixer, and the only thing is this today was announced that Montrezl Harrell has tore his ACL, so he is out for the foreseeable future. Phillies are going into the ninth inning. The bullpen kind of made an interesting game. It looks like Gregory Soto is here to close it out. Again, no Craig Kimbrell. I'm gonna have to look that up. Is he out, or are they just nursing a little something? I haven't heard about anything about him being on the DL as of lately. Let's check the news on him. Sorry, guys. I just wanted, interesting. Yeah, it just says he grabs his 18th save one day ago. I don't know. I don't know why he is not in again. I mean, it's the pitching matchup, lefty righty. I don't know. But right now, Gregory Soto is coming in to close the game for the Phillies. They're up 5-4, ninth inning, and that is it, guys. I'm going to go allow Pat the Gobbler to get ready. So, guys, stay tuned. Pat will take it. Joe, Daniel, and all the other guys chime in tonight. Thank you for joining me tonight. This was my first solo show without Joe and Fred, so hopefully you were finding me entertaining and we got discussion. But other than that, guys, thank you for joining me. Remember to check out our great sponsors at cherrystickets.com, phillysportstrips.com, cherryinjurylaw.com, and dolansbar.com. And there is one out so far. A little bit of a long out, but it was an out nonetheless. So, guys, check it out. I will see you guys next time. Thank you for joining me tonight.